No matter where you go, no matter what you do, take that Maui style with you. Cause if you ain't Maui styling, you just living on an island. Maui styling, don't let me down. 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 There is sunshine in your heart. It's been with you from the start. Lift your head, look to the heavens, then you will feel brand new again. Don't stop me now, Maui styling, don't let me down. 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 Reach out your hand and help each other. Your mother, your father, your sister and brother. There is love in this family. Pick yourself up and get on your feet. Don't stop me now, Maui styling, don't let me down. 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 Makena styling, up country styling, Campo styling, Kahana Valley styling, Hana styling, Waihu styling, Bahia styling, Keanai styling. Maui styling, don't let me down. 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 Maui styling, Maui styling, don't stop me now. Maui styling.
Reading over here tonight.
Welcome to another Mama Presents. You know, today we have a special guest. For you that have gone to Nouveau Riche College, you know who this is. This is Tony Litster. For those of you who don't know, you'll want to know Tony Litster. Tony, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Anytime, I'm glad to be in Maui.
Now that's another thing. There's a Maui beach podium. We had an intensive today where Tony was here and gave a free day of education to share what it's like there at the college. And we didn't want to let Maui go by without having a few minutes and getting on the air with Tony. Tony teaches a subject called short sails. Now, we have a short time, a quick time, so we're not going to go into too much detail. First of all, Tony, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
We were in a room there, and it was air conditioned, but now we're in a room with no air conditioning, just so you
Back to
feel
Maui.
Maui.
You know, I had them turn up the air conditioning for the so I could feel like I was back in Idaho again.
Well, that's right.
It's good to be here.
Well, you know, when you're at school, you're very hard to speak to, except with groups, because I know to your wife you might not be. To all of us, you're like a rock star.
Definitely not to my wife.
You know, at Nouveau Riche University, the fact that all the instructors are practitioners who actually do what they teach is an incredible thing. And seeing you there in class and all that you share, you know, we're all sort of riveted to you. We don't let these guys out for breaks, lunch, nothing. There are so many people that want to get up close, and so we really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we have a good time, so it's definitely worth doing.
And I was glad to hear that you at least had one day to enjoy Maui.
I did. My wife and I are here, and we had a fantastic time. Went and walked along the lava and swam a few times in the ocean and enjoyed the warmth before we go back to the the frozen tundra.
The frozen tundra.
of the mainland. So no, it's good. I love coming here. This is fantastic.
I wish you'd give us just a sort of a snapshot definition of what a short sale is, so that our audience can know what we're going to be talking about.
Absolutely. As everybody knows, foreclosures are on the rise, even in Maui. The percentage of foreclosures this year is 200% higher than it was last year. And so foreclosures are on the rise, and lenders are doing everything they can to get these houses off of their books before they have to take them back as a foreclosed property. And a short sale is a process where the lender will actually reduce the amount of money that they'll take for the house. They'll take a discount off what's owed, or a short payoff, as they call it, in order to get the house moved before the foreclosure actually takes place.
And so what you teach is you teach people how to do it, how to go to a homeowner that is in a challenge, or how to find them besides.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to find them before you can help them.
You got to find them before you can help them.
Right.
Right. And you want them before they're in foreclosure, before they're in that next stage, as you can best help it, right?
Yeah, we'll come in before the bank actually holds the auction. And we'll work with the homeowner that doesn't usually have very many options. They're trying to sell the house, they can't get it sold, the bank's foreclosing. And so we will come in, work with that homeowner, and put a deal together where we'll go and present it to the bank, get the bank to approve of it, and then we'll purchase the property. So it ends up being a win-win for the homeowner because they don't end up with foreclosure on their record. It's a win-win for the bank because they can get it off their books, and they lose less by doing a short sale with us than they would if they had to take the property back. And it's a win-win for us because it's a very profitable business. We'll come in, a lot of times we'll remodel these houses and then turn around and sell them again. This is a great business right now. The market is so prime for it, and there's so many foreclosures that lenders are discounting at rates that we've never seen before. So it's exciting.
So now you've done these all across the country in numbers of states. How did you get into something like this?
I was a full-time real estate investor. I was buying and selling houses. It was just kind of a small business, really. My business partner Gavin and I were buying and selling houses in Idaho, and we'd buy them and fix them up, clean them up, put new carpet in, paint them, and turn around and sell them. And we started to mentor other people in this process. We started to teach other people how to do this, and then eventually started actually teaching the class for Nouveau Riche, where we teach other investors how to do this strategy. We've done a little over 100 deals. I don't know exactly how many we've done. We bought in, resold them for a profit. So I've got enough experience to have been through it before. I definitely haven't bought. There's other people who bought more houses than me, but we know how to do it. We've systemized it, put it in a way that other people can understand it.
Well, the thing that I've appreciated about your class, their class is 2 full days. At the university, 2 full days means there's a lot to it. Do not try this at home without an instruction manual. Because as many things that you can do with it, there are a lot of things that those fine differences that you share are the difference between success and no success. It's just knowing the language and knowing how and what to say to the right people at the right time. Around here, we hear the word short sale, like someone selling shorts. We see it everywhere,
right.
But it's not that. And
it's a little different.
A lot of realtors jump in and use the name around here. So some of you keep seeing all these things that say short sale, short sale. What Tony and his partner Gavin teach are actually how to do it. A realtor is sort of an extra cog in the wheel in many ways, because they're extra money to be paid. I imagine the banks aren't really happy to be finding someone profiting, the seller for sure, but also seeing a realtor in the middle. So this is a way that many people can get involved and find that little window might be the profit that they make that might otherwise.
Yeah, a lot of times, and it can be done with a realtor. I mean, there's definitely realtors that do it, so it's not exclusive to investors.
No.
But our process is geared towards obviously making it profitable for us as an investor, and it depends on the scenario with that realtor if it makes sense to have them involved or not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
And the other part I'm really bringing up is you don't need to be a realtor to do a short sale.
No.
Or to buy a property like this and then to sell it to someone.
Right.
You have to take title to it, of course.
Sure.
Otherwise, you are being sort of like a realtor.
Yeah, you can't broker a property and line up buyers and sellers without taking ownership, without being a licensed, real estate agent for that. But what we'll do is we'll actually purchase the property and own it, and then sell it as a, as a for sale by owner property. And so we can come in and buy multiple properties that way and then resell them ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And timing on it's great. It's very exciting right now.
Now, the other thing we learned that we always find very fun, it's called a short sale, but that doesn't mean it happens quickly.
No.
In fact, just the opposite.
It's averaging at least 4 months. Sometimes we'll get them done a little bit sooner, but the whole process of finding them, putting it together, negotiating with the lender, and then ended up reselling it on the back end is anywhere from 4 to up to 12 or 13 months. Our longest took over a year. But it was worth waiting for. It was a nice check at the back end, and it was worth waiting for. So you have to have some patience with it. Definitely is not something that I have so many people come up and say, I can't wait to do one of those quick sales. It's not a quick sale. It's a short payoff. That's why the bank calls it a short sale. And
a quick sale might be a fix and flip.
Sure.
Where you're buying, fixing, and flipping. In this kind of a market, I bet fixing and flipping, you got to be even more aware than normal, because our markets right now, let's say they're not appreciating like we'd seen in recent years, especially here in Maui, right? You guys know things have been going up where you could almost do no wrong around here. And many of the people that were doing no wrong, then the mortgages change and you can't do the same kind of loans and they can't find buyers and they're stuck. It creates many of these situations. What about short sales? There's so much of a subject here. What area, if you were going to share just a juicy beginning for people, how do they go about looking at this? I know I can tell them, come to Nouveau Riche University,
sure.
But in general, just really want to get your head, because you've seen the kind of questions that come from people that are just learning about it.
Yeah, and I've taught thousands of people all over the country this process. I would say, obviously, get really familiar with your market. Short sales are when someone is in distress, payments are late, or they're actually in default, the bank is foreclosing on them. And so get really familiar with your market and where those houses are and how to find those houses, what the rules are in your area, because every state has different rules of how those are reported, where you're going to find them, how you can get that information. And the other thing is you want to get educated on the process. There was a time in our markets when people could go out and just buy houses and make money on them. And a lot of people did that here in the islands because of the appreciation that was happening. I don't think those times are still happening. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. There's a lot of challenges that come up. And so you really need to get educated on how these processes work. If you try to invest the old way, chances are it's probably not going to work. But there are ways to make money in these markets. And so, figure out what your market is. Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it stagnant? What's the median price range? How are foreclosures reported? Where do you find that information? And that's kind of your groundwork to be able to start to look at these. And then get educated by somebody that's actually done this. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of talk. I see so many newspaper articles where people are like, oh yeah, short sales this, short sales that. And they clearly have no clue what they're talking about. They just write news stories and maybe they read a little clip somewhere. If you really want to make money in this market, you have to look at strategies that work in the current market. You can't play the old game.
And it's also something that you really shouldn't do at a distance unless you're very experienced, right?
I would recommend getting experience and getting some hand-holding from someone that's done it. And that's the best way to
for
figure it out.
example, people on Maui, let's say that now you were educated. Even Nouveau Riche went through Tony's class. Doing short sales in Ohio or in California or in Idaho or wherever where you don't know the area, again, can be a bit dangerous unless you physically go there or have an educated partner who's there, right?
Well, and I get calls and emails from people every week all over the country saying, hey, I've got a short sale here, I've got a short sale there. My rule of thumb, if I'm going to do a deal with someone, because I've done these in somewhere around 20 states, about half the states I've done short sales successfully in, but I always have somebody on the ground that can go and verify the condition of the property, they can verify the numbers on the deal, and they can verify the comparable sales. They can go drive down the neighborhood and see what's nearby. You know, we've looked at properties that ended up having, you know, power lines running above them that no one told us about because we're in a different state, and I mean, you name it, we've seen it. We've seen some real fiascos take place. And so for people that are investing in other places, I know a lot of people do that. Make sure you have somebody on the ground that's part of the deal that's going to give you the real numbers. And that's very, very important.
I can tell you that one. That's part of the deal, because many times you can have people that aren't part of the deal, and their part is to make sure the deal happens.
Yeah.
And so they can color things.
Look, trust but verify. It's fine to trust the seller of the property, but I will not buy a house unless I've had a third party come in and verify the numbers for me.
I see.
And it's just that's why we've, you know, and I have lost money on a couple of deals, but I've made money on over 100, and there's a reason for it. I've been conservative on the deals that I've taken on. I know the rules. I stick to the rules, and you know, I'm not out there speculating. I'm picking good, solid deals in solid areas and solid markets, and I verify everything. Even if I know the person, I still verify everything. So, you know, I'd recommend.
That's
obviously,
a very big good lesson.
It's a huge thing. Even if you know them or you know you don't know them, get someone else to come verify those numbers that's on your team.
Right. So what part of this process do you enjoy the most?
That's interesting. Because I've been on all sides of it. When I first started this business as a real estate investor, I thought I had to wear all the hats. You know, I went in and I met with the person, and I lined up the deal, and I did all that stuff, and then I would actually go personally clean up the property. You know, get a pickup truck and some overalls and go clean up their junk. And then, I mean, you name it, we cleaned it. It was awful. And so I did all the parts of it. I thought that I had to be the one that painted the house and this and that. And I've started to outsource a lot of that in my business now, to where I use more of my brain than my back. And that's obviously what we do. And then I started to teach people. The part of teaching that I enjoy the most is mentoring someone through that process, having them, like taking them through and having them, watching them take those steps, and then they come to me and they go, okay, what do I do next? Okay, I'm scared, what do I do here? And helping them get to that end of that deal where they get the check and they get paid. And I've done enough of these that I get the check and it's just kind of normal. It's like, okay, how much was it? 10, 20, 30, 40,000, okay, great. We deposit it, and I enjoy that. But when I see that student get their first check, that's exciting. It's like that first one, that $20,000 check, that $10,000 check, whatever it is, even if it's a small one, a $5,000 check, to them all of a sudden it's real. That they took the information they learned, they applied it, they got through all the steps, and they made it real, made it tangible. The mentoring side is the part that I really enjoy. It's hands down my favorite part.
Well, we're going to talk more about mentoring in different ways here in a little bit. Now I'm going to flip the coin. I'm saying, so there are good parts and bad parts. What do you like to delegate?
I like to delegate way too much of it. That's funny. Obviously the paperwork side, I like to delegate that. It's interesting because what I'll do when I take someone through this process is I'll have them determine which of the activities can be delegated and at what price. And everything has its price value. Like I delegate my accounting work to my bookkeeper and my CPA, obviously. I delegate the legal work to my attorney. People get that. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. A lot of the selling of the properties, I'll use realtors to sell my properties a lot, so I'm delegating the selling of the property to them. But there's other components of the deal that you can delegate. The paperwork side of it, the interaction with the client, the lining up, like I delegate a lot to my title company to handle, structuring the deal. There's certain aspects that I don't like to delegate. One of them is when my marketing goes out, I like to take that call when it comes back in.
I see.
I want to be the one that talks to the homeowner, gets a sense of what their needs are, and sets up a deal that really is win-win for them. So that's something I will delegate it out, but it tends to be a lot more expensive to delegate out that piece because you have to have someone that has skills to be able to connect to people.
When you say the marketing, you mean finding the deals at all?
Yeah, if I want to send out letters to people that are in foreclosure, I'm gonna I'll mail letters to them. I'll say, hey, look, it looks like you're in trouble. I buy houses in your neighborhood. If you're interested, give me a call. I'd like to buy your house. And when that phone call comes back in, I like to be the one that takes that. I do have some people on my team that handle that now. It tends to cost a lot more to delegate that part out. But as far as like, painting the house, my hat goes off to the painters out there because that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work and it's dirty work. Cleaning up the properties, I have people on my team that handle that for me. The only time I clean up properties now is if it's a family member that's moving and they need help. I'll go clean. Otherwise, I'm delegating that out. I'm delegating that part out. I don't want to do that.
And when you were earlier talking about seeing people before foreclosure, I know you have many, many ways. Can you give us a couple of examples? I just want to give people a feeling for, because you've taught us so many different ways and different things. And we have an audience here. You can't really see what they look like.
They look
I can
great.
see what they look like.
If they're here in Maui, they look
Notice?
great. I've been walking around the island for 2 days.
Put on a robe there, sir. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
But we have people that tune in that really come and see us talking about all kinds of stuff. And here they're seeing us talking about short sales. So this is actually something that now, this is your work. And people can do this full-time, part-time. Because it takes a little longer than a short time for a short sale, if they get involved, expect to be wearing 2 hats and walking down 2 paths when you be beginning, I'd imagine.
Yeah, especially when someone first starts out. My recommendation is that they actually do the steps before they delegate the steps.
Right.
You don't have to do them for a long period of time, but to delegate well, you have to really instill in the other person what their job is, what is it they have to do. And so I want them to do that, to delegate it. Do it first and then delegate it, but it does take, on average, 4 to 6 months. And so, the checks are worth waiting for when they come in. They're big, they're a great big check. It's phenomenal money. But someone needs to be patient on that aspect. That it's going to take some time. I don't recommend that people just, watch a video like this and go out there and quit their job and say, I'm going to go do short sales.
Oh, yeah.
There may be a learning curve that'll happen.
I liked hearing your story about people that went out there that came out of your class and actually use your textbook, what you share, to be able to have a script so they know exactly each step of the way. Because each step of the way really takes precision and care.
Yeah, and there's a lot of steps to it.
And a short half-a-day seminar on short sales might not just do it.
I mean, there's a lot of gaps that are left open. So
You do
if
this
you want
thing-
the information, you should.
What does
get the
Gavin do?
comprehensive.
You guys are a team.
Yeah.
And I imagine you guys do similar things, have different tasks and everything?
We definitely split things up. Some of the stuff is similar. I happen to be the more sales-oriented of our partnership. He's much more structured and organized than I am.
So he handles the paperwork?
He handles making sure that the trains come in on time, the business structure, the systems are in place. He's a real systems guy. He's really good at setting up systems, and then I'm much more, I'm kind of squirrely, personable. I like to joke around a lot. But from my vantage point, I do a lot of the interfacing with the client, with that person, and making sure that they're getting what they need out of it, making sure it's a win-win situation. Gavin helps sort of temper my my spontaneity with some systems, some structure.
In
So
class, I
plays
see
off
the
each other
straight
well.
man or you the straight man? You guys play back and forth.
Yeah, we've been we started hanging out in Cub Scouts when we were 11,
Oh.
and we went through junior high and high school, and we performed for years and years and years in different activities. We had a band together. We did these different things. Now we teach this class together, and so it tends to become a little bit of a back and forth, with each other of these 15-year running jokes that the audience gets to start to participate in. But the thing I found is if it's not lively, if it's not entertaining, people fall asleep. So we like to keep it alive, keep it real. We tell stories. It's interesting, when we set up the class and designed it, we didn't want to just tell the rosy side of real estate investing, because there have been challenges, huge hiccups that we had. We had some deals that almost put us out of business, and some very expensive mistakes. And so we actually, instead of just showing the rosy stuff, we come in and we'll show some of the disaster deals, and some of them, they're hilarious now.
That's looking back.
Oh my goodness, when they happened, they were awful, absolutely awful. So, but we want to give a realistic approach and say, look, you're getting into a game where you're playing with big numbers. There's big checks to be made, but it's also, there's some danger involved too. It's like the, you know, I'm looking at some of these surfers that surf these giant waves, you know, and I watch them and they get up there and
make it look easy.
but right below them is that reef, you know, and if they crash, it'll finish them. And so it's definitely, there's a lot of money to be made. It's a phenomenal timing, phenomenal opportunity. Things are geared for that, but you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta kind of test it out on the smaller waves. I know when I started surfing, well, I was still at the small waves. I haven't gotten to
That's right. Me too.
yeah, but it was like, wow, those guys sure make it look easy to go, you know, barreling down that big one at 80 miles an hour or whatever it is.
And I think you made a really good point that I want to bring up, which is, although you teach short sales, and you do short sales regularly in your business, having knowledge of more than just short sales is obviously appropriate. Do you find yourself doing other deals?
Oh, absolutely.
As well?
I've done all kinds of real estate. I've done new builds, you know, new construction. I've done buying land, selling land. I've done you know, a lot of fix and flips, a lot of minor rehabs, a few huge, you know, gut the house completely rehab projects. I tend to like to sell those to other people that like that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I look at that, numbers look good, I'll sell it to another investor that wants to do that rehab, and I'll make a small amount for selling it to them. It's called wholesaling. So I've done all kinds of different real estate. Definitely don't only do short sales. It was what we started with, it was the only thing we knew at the beginning. Until we realized there's all these other strategies and angles of real estate.
Well, you teach it well, and I know that people that have taken other short sale experience classes that have also taken yours have found yours to be head and shoulders the complete deal, the real deal, you know, not waiting for later to give you the punchline or, you know, the things not to do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when we designed the class, I sat down and I said, what would have helped me starting out? I put myself back in the position of going to my first training when I started learning about short sales. And I looked through the stumbling blocks that we had along the way. And at each of those stumbling blocks, we put something into the course designed to help the person really get past it and have the tools to get past it, and the manual that goes with it to help them at each of those points, each of the stumbling blocks. We really put it, we designed it for what we would have wanted to have had. And it's fun. It has to be fun, otherwise I'm not doing it. You know, it's got to keep me awake if I'm the one teaching it. So, you know, so it's interactive. It's fun. A lot of role playing. A lot of deal structuring. A lot of hands-on. So I want people to really know how to do it.
And
I have students, hundreds of them all over the country, that are sending us testimonials of deals they're doing. Current deals in the current market. I mean, they're doing short sales all over the country. We've done some here in Hawaii. Had a student today that talked about a deal that he did recently on Maui, which I know people were saying, you know, they're saying you can't do short sales on Maui.
I mean, the numbers were pretty amazing to me.
Yep, 475 owed. 475 owed, and the bank took 271.
Catch that. People wonder if that stuff actually happens.
Well, it happened.
It happens.
It happened here. So, and we just did another one on I believe it was
in Oahu.
Is what it was. Yeah, on that show.
The one here was in on the west side of Maui. The one you're talking about is in Waipahu.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't pronounce it. I was hoping you did.
Well, you got to get used to it. We have fewer letters. You got to pronounce every vowel. You get used to it.
I knew how to spell it, but I thought, no, I'm not even going to try.
Well, then that one was juicier.
Yeah.
That one made a little bit more money.
Yeah, they walked with a $30,000 check. I don't remember the exact number. I don't want to quote the numbers on that one, but they walked. I know what the check was at the end. It was about $30,000.
Which that's another thing you learn, that when you see a property that is bigger and juicier and think there's a lot of equity, there may not. And when you see a little deal and think there's no equity, in understanding and knowing what to do with the things that are going on, you can create that equity.
Yeah.
And be able to, you know, re-look at these. Isn't that always the perspective of how you're looking? That's how important your knowledge is.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you were using examples today where on first glance it looked like the deal was completely upside down and nothing you'd even want to approach. But then when you look at it and see how to address each and every different object there, suddenly equity got created.
Yeah.
And that was good. And the ones that look like, oh, they're going to be just an absolute gold mine for you, you can find all kinds of other things.
Yeah. Sometimes there are some surprises there.
That's like we like to say, do not try this at home without a manual.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly.
Really true.
Exactly.
Well, we can talk about this forever. And this is the kind of subject that goes on, and there's so much to it. But like any diamond, diamonds have many facets, and this diamond has other facets. In fact, many people know Tony as a personal development coach. And I'm going to switch gears, because here in Maui, you have people you know, and you may know them for years, and then later someone from off island comes here and goes, wow, you know that person? I just knew that as Mary down the street, and Mary's doing all kinds of seminars all over the world and lives in Maui.
Right. I understand why, too.
We have a lot of people that live here that are doing all kinds of different spiritual and growth and development things. I'm just going to sort of give you the floor to kind of talk about that a little bit, about the personal development. I guess first how it relates to this and general. All right?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics. I know when I first started in real estate, I call it the financial self-image, how much I thought it was okay for me to make based on the upbringing I had and different beliefs. And if I made more than that pretty quickly, and I started to notice when I started training other people, I could teach them all the nuts and bolts of how to do a perfect real estate transaction. And if it was more than they were financially comfortable with, they would sabotage the deal. And I watched it time after time, and it wasn't just, it was intriguing to watch it, but it was also frustrating because I wasn't getting paid on those deals. Right. A lot of these were partnerships that I was involved in, and these partnerships, the student we'd line up the deal, we'd have everything ready, we'd have a buyer in place, we'd get it ready to fund, and for whatever reason, it would be beyond what they were comfortable with, and then they would sabotage it. And I wasn't getting paid on these, and that wasn't cool. I didn't like that. So I started doing personal development work with these different students, taking them through some different processes, and I had students that had phenomenal results. One guy I worked with, he was in Palmer, Alaska, and he had several deals. We'd worked a few months together. He had several deals going, but he hadn't closed any of them. And he was getting frustrated. He was about to quit the business. And I took him through a process I call the conversation, which I started taking people through. And in the next 3 months, he made over $200,000 cash in his business. He's continued to invest in real estate and has done really quite well with it. And so it's interesting to see this process. So I started seeing that in order for me to really get people the results they wanted, it wasn't enough just to teach them nuts and bolts about how to do deals. It was that they had to change how they really saw themselves and really start to incorporate principles of personal development to stretch that financial self-image and start to get the results that they were looking for. And I ended up mentoring other people. Once I got my process down of the process I take people through, people started showing up. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Well, all of a sudden I had a tool that I could use with people. They just started showing up. I'd have these very coincidental meetings with different people. One guy was a musician. He'd been a pro musician for 12 years. We had a really synchronistic emailing and coincidental thing and that kind of stuff. And I took it. He in his 12 years as a pro musician, for the last 7 years, had not been able to do a new CD. He was completely stuck in writer's block. And I took him through this process of the conversation, and 3 months later, he was in the studio recording a new CD. Wow. Released it 3 months later. I worked with a guy that played professional football for the Chicago Bears a couple years ago. And in his 4-year career, he'd only had 4 catches, which isn't that good. Not that good. Yeah, not that impressive. Right,
he got to the pros.
Hey, he got to the pros, and he was good.
Right.
But once he got there, it limited his belief systems.
Right.
And it's very interesting to look at what people's real, true belief systems are. He told me that when he was in college, he said to his wife, he said, when I get to the pros, I just want to be a backup tight end. And sure enough, he got to the pros because he knew he was going to get there, and he stayed a backup tight end. So I started working with him, and I took him through the process of the conversation. And the next game, he had 3 catches, 2 tackles, and was named Offensive Player of the Game and given the game ball.
Wow.
Big change, and completely changed his game and helped get his team to the Super Bowl that year. So he was able to live his dream of, playing in the Super Bowl. Every pro football player's dream.
Wow.
And he was very instrumental in doing that. And it's interesting because I started taking different real estate investors, different, all these different people that showed up in my life through this process, and they were having dramatic results, like really profound changes in the results they were getting in their life because they changed how they viewed themselves on that core emotional level. And I know, and I found this with the people from Maui, and I've interacted in the different seminars with a lot of people from the islands. There's a special vibe, like people, they're just, it's different here than the mainland. And you know that because you live here. I notice there's a distinct difference. I can tell the people tend to have, they're a little more grounded. They're a lot more grounded. They have that laid back feel, but they're into personal growth. And they're into looking within and getting clear on what their purpose is and really doing a lot of work on what is their life about and what is the contribution that their life makes, which, that's the foundation of personal development. That gets me, the short sales, I like teaching it, it's a great topic, it's a great moneymaker, but the personal development stuff, to get into what's going on in their head and their emotions and the belief systems that have driven them up to this point, and to be able to tweak that a little bit and watch that person take off. I had a student, she was writing a movie, and she'd been working on it for 4 years. For 2 years, she hadn't been able to write. Complete writer's block. She even put it on the shelf and said, fine, I'm not going to do this. She actually hired me as a real estate coach because she started investing in real estate. She's like, well, if I'm not going to do my movie, I got to do something else. And as soon as I heard she'd been writing a movie, I'm like, all right, we can talk about real estate later. Let's talk about this. And sure enough, within 2 months, she was writing the movie, and she's since finished it, and it's getting ready to be produced.
That's great.
I get to see that kind of stuff. One of the students that I'm working with currently started doing drugs when he was young. Kind of had troubled youth. He's been sober now for about a year, which he'd been unsober for about 17 years. And it's been interesting to watch him take this process of changing how he truly views himself on an emotional level, and how that then manifests into his life of getting new results. And the problem is, he would when he felt bad as a kid, he didn't fit in, he felt bad, and so he checked out by using drugs. And the problem is when someone gets into this, I call it the shame cycle, that they do the activity, so he used the drugs, and it helped him escape for a little while, and then he came out of it and he felt really bad. So then he started beating himself up, saying, "Oh man, I did it again, and I'm a worthless person. I'm this, I'm that." And then he would start to feel really bad about himself, and the only way he knew to escape was drugs. So the cycle would come around, and he would check out again with drugs. And this process that I take people through I work with a lot of people with addiction challenges, and what we'll do is shift the inner dialogue, shift that conversation they're having with themselves, so that if he does go back into the cycle and use drugs again, we're going to change the way his inner dialogue goes, and he doesn't go into this mode of beating himself up. He actually comes out and starts to go back into the positive inner dialogue, and on an emotional level. I mean, intellectually it's one thing to think this, but when it happens to him emotionally, and he's able to then step out and go, you know what, I'm not defined by my behavior, and all of a sudden see that drugs no longer serve him, it's not a real battle for him anymore not to use them. So it's really interesting. So this is I could talk all day on, I guess.
I was just going to say.
I could talk all day on short sales, but I could talk all night on personal development.
Well, I think this would be a good time. You're going to see the thing up there. We should give your website address so they can go up and take a look at that kind of side of what you're doing. Yeah. I know you have a video there that goes through some things to give people an introduction. What is that website address first? The website is
waterweedrepeat.com. And I named it after the process of creation, going back to natural principles of creation. If you want to create something, a harvest, some sort of outcome, first you plant those seeds, then you got to water it, and along with the growth comes the junk. That's what happens in life. We start doing personal development work, our belief systems that don't serve us are going to start showing up. And so that's the weeds show up. So we get rid of those weeds, and we repeat. We keep that process going. So waterweedrepeat.com is the website. And on that website, I actually made a video of the conversation. Because what happened is once I started taking people through this conversation, they have these dramatic results and this emotional transformation of how they saw themselves, I started getting requests for it everywhere. Yeah. And people coming to me and phone calls all the time. Hey, I've heard about this conversation. Would you take me through it? Just from all over the world. I took people from a dozen different countries. I've done it all over the world when I've been traveling, taking people through this conversation. And I just didn't have enough time to take as many people as wanted to.
So that's why we're putting the website up.
Yeah.
It's obviously it's the kind of thing that's going to stimulate you to want to know more. At least this is Tony's first line of defense, if you will.
Yeah.
To give him time, but also to give you an introduction, if you will, to this whole thing.
Well, and I have the full conversation as a free video. So they can get on there and watch it. It's free, email it to your friends. It's something that for me is part of my purpose. It's a big part of, it was a big part of my personal transformation and my personal growth. And it's something I love to share with people. And so I just put it on there. It's a free video. You can go there and watch it.
We could talk about personal development a lot because, like last night, we had a gift from you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sort of an introduction of personal development, very different than short sales. And we all could have stayed there and enjoyed lots and lots of it. So thank you for that. It's a nice combination to see someone who is out there making a lot of money, having a lot of success, but also remembers to be balanced and remembers, we can't take it with us. It's true. And so there's a whole process. That brings me up to something else. Both you and I have enjoyed the, I guess the word mentoring is appropriate, from Tom
Absolutely.
Bell. You know that we have someone on the island named Tom Bell. In fact, Tom has been initiating me into transcendental meditation. And I'm relatively new at it, but I understand that he also gave you some assistance in there.
Yeah. And Tom, he won't ever tell you this. He's too modest to tell you this, but Tom has worked with some of the most well-known people on the planet. I mean, he took people, and I think it's okay for me to mention this, but he took people like the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and he taught the process to Michael Jackson. And
Elizabeth Taylor.
He took Elizabeth Taylor through this process. I mean, he's worked with some of the biggest people that have been influencing culturally the ways people think. He's had two of the people that he has taught the meditation technique play their music in the Super Bowl. So played before 1 billion people, both Michael Jackson and Tom Petty. And so he's been teaching this for about 30 years, and really one of the best teachers I've ever found. And I personally had studied lots of meditation, I practice yoga, and I've done these different things, but the technique he teaches really works. There was a lot of times I would try to meditate, and I'd sit and I'd say, okay, get the thoughts out of my head, no more thoughts, and then I'd say, oh, but that's a thought, oh, and that's a thought too, I'm
in the middle of that now. I'm going this direction.
Right,
Yeah,
you're completely tied up in that kind of dialogue. And this technique that Tom teaches is so simple. It takes 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. But for me, it has been revolutionary. I know for my wife, she's here with us. Maybe she can talk about her role we have 4 children, and her ability to stay present to the children has gone up dramatically. And that has been, it's been great for us being able to connect. But if anyone is in this process of personal development, this technique that he teaches, I've never seen anything. I've never experienced anything like it. It is the real experience of meditating, and it's experiential meditating. It's very, very cool. It's just this very simple technique. It's funny because I was kind of brought up in a family that viewed anything meditation or Eastern as kind of weird, like out there. And so I was a little bit shy of it, honestly. And when I learned it was just a simple technique, it's not, it's not like a strange religion. Yeah, no, not by any means. It's a meditation technique that allows you to transcend the thoughts and really get out of your head and experience your body releasing stress that's been accumulating and getting back to a space of being very, very grounded. And to be able to do that just like that. I gave a presentation today. I was on stage for, 4 hours, I guess. Right. And after the presentation, both my wife and I sat down, and we got to do it here in Maui. We went and sat by the water. In fact, we're going to show that video just to show you he is really here in Hawaii. Yeah. Here we are in this white room. Isn't that funny? All for Hawaii's beauty, and we're sitting in a plain white room. It's quiet, though. It's quiet. But for me, it gives me the ability to reset emotionally. And so if anyone's interested in that, he lives here on the island. Tom does. Oh, yeah. And has some phenomenal information. So that's what I said. We have so many people here that are really
great at what they do and have tremendous depth, and Tom Shirley is one of them. He's a good guy.
He is a good guy.
Yeah. You know, we can go on and on. I think that I should do the magic of changing seats here. I know that I want to bring Bree on, and I know I want to bring Ariel on too. So I'm going to do a little magic, snap my fingers, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to switch roles. How's that sound?
Fantastic.
Sound good? Watch this. See if you guys can count. 1, 2, 3.
Magic! It happened. Which is the scene changed. Now we have this beautiful teacher surrounded by females. And this is Tony's wife, Bree. Bree, thank you so much for coming to Maui and joining us here.
Oh, it's so beautiful here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we really appreciate you. You're such a beautiful woman with a heart of gold. I picked that one up very quickly.
Thank you.
So, and we had a great conversation today about having 4 children very close together. It was lots of fun. So I'm sure you do get to use a lot of Tony's and yours. I'm sure you're part of it.
Mm-hmm.
This whole personal development thing with your children.
Every day. The biggest thing for me with the personal development that we've learned is how I talk to my kids, because I talk to them completely differently than I see other people talking to their children. For instance, the way somebody figures out who they are, their parents instill in them as a simple statement at such a small age, saying, you know, either you can do it or you can't do it, or you're so great or you're not great. And I see this all the time when I look at parents and moms, you know, with their children. And the one thing that I do differently is I want my children to believe that they can be whoever they want to be, or that they can grow up, or that the things that they're doing are impactful and are wonderful. And so I make sure that I tell them that. Even if it's just scribbling on a piece of paper this little picture of some stick thing. Mom, I did this for you. Isn't this great? Yes, honey, that's beautiful. Oh, you're so wonderful at this. You're so great at this. And then they come back feeling, wow, I'm something great, instead of dismissing it as just, you know, a couple of lines on a piece of paper.
It's one of the things that we've really tried to teach our kids is that they are not defined by what they do necessarily.
Right.
So, you know, as they're going to bed, we'll say to them, you know, you're a good boy, you're a good girl. And we've said it enough times now that as they're getting older, and we'll say that to them, I say it every night before they go to bed. I'll say to my son, you're such a good boy. And his response now is, I know, Dad. It was one night, it was so moving for me. One night I went in, I was snuggling him before bed, and he put his arms around my neck, and I said, you're a good boy. And he goes, you're a good boy too, Daddy. And he patted me on the head. It was a moment as a parent. That was so moving. But I wanted them to, and we both have agreed with this, we wanted them to have the belief that they were good people, that they're not defined necessarily by their behavior. And if they misbehave, they're not going to associate that they're a bad person. They'll see the behavior doesn't serve them, rather than thinking that they're bad because of it. So it's something we want to instill in our kids. It's what we instill in the adults that go through the personal development.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. I can't wait to go back to my grandchildren and use that one on them. Because I absolutely see it. They do consider who they are.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if they've done something naughty, you know, they start thinking of themselves as a bad person.
They start to associate themselves with that, oh, I'm bad because of that behavior. And that's not true. They're not bad. Inherently, they are so good.
Right.
They just happen to act that way.
Right.
And so if you can separate those two, then they come out with such a great foundation of, wow, I'm a great person. Oh, but I made a mistake. Well, that's okay. Mistakes can be repaired. But the self-image, as Tony talked about, is such a fragile thing that you want to build it as best as you can, knowing that they don't have to defend a self-image that isn't really who they are, because they're not that active, that action. They're not, you know, those little things. They are great. Like Tony says, you know, you're good. You're a good boy. Yes, I know. And so they're just going to think I'm good, and either I act this way or I act this way, but it's not connected to who they are.
But the goodness is very well put into them. They know that, so they're not judging themselves from that place. That's really wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely haven't been perfect parents by any means.
No.
But, we're doing the best we can. But that one piece for me, and for Bree, it's so critical that we want them to believe they're good people. And then the rest, they can do some personal development work on.
And you are perfect parents because it's all perfect, right?
It is.
They're all getting what they need to get and what they need to learn. So tell me, how were you interested in this before you started working with your students and seeing how it affected them? I mean, because when I was listening to your story, you started saying, well, it was because of them. But I just had the feeling that you were way interested in this before those things started happening. And where did that come from? And
I want to hear what she's laughing about, but I know she's going to tell some story about me here.
Okay, go for it.
The interest for him with personal development started many years ago.
I had that feeling.
For me, it came up, like, when we got married, we came from completely different families. And it was so interesting to see him compare his family to my family. Because our families were opposites. And his family valued stuff that my family was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And he's like, well, what do you mean? Like, his family values really hard work. And my family's like, yeah, you have to work, but you play just as hard. And so when we got married...
my family values work over play, hands down.
Right, so when we got married, and I'm like, okay, great, you worked, great, now we can play, right, honey? And he's like, no, we have to work harder. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I didn't know how to play.
And so when we started comparing our upbringings and our background, and then trying to mesh the two, trying to figure out, well, why is your family right? Why is my family right? What's going on with this? That's when a lot of the personal development started coming into play of, where did these belief systems come from? Where did the programming start?
Yeah, and see, growing up in my family, I didn't know some of the beliefs were kind of weird. But once we got married, I remember one time, right after we got married, we went shopping. And she wanted to buy, it was grocery shopping. She wanted to buy a thing of fresh squeezed orange juice, the not from concentrate, the good stuff. And I just emotionally I couldn't do it. I said, no, you can't get that stuff. Because I don't, we had this, we grew up and my parents were frugal. And we drank orange juice out of the can. We did not drink the stuff out of the jug. Now, look, there were 6 kids in my family. I know why my dad didn't buy it from the jug. It would have cost him hundreds of dollars a month. We bought it in the can. But I had gotten this belief that it wasn't okay, that I wasn't good enough to actually get the fresh squeezed real orange juice. We had to get it out of the can. And she was just like, what are you talking about? Get this stuff. And it was this weird emotional thing where I was like, how do I do that? And this stuff started to show up.
We were in the middle of the grocery store having this conversation. And I'm like, well, why can't you do this? And he's like, I don't know, but emotionally, it's too much. And I'm like, wait a minute. Do we make our money? We make our money, right? And he's like, well, yeah, of course. I'm like, so we can spend it on whatever we want to, right? Well, sure. Okay, we're getting this stuff from the jar, right? We're not going to buy this stuff from the can. And he was just like this whole new paradigm opened for him. Like, oh my gosh, I have the ability to choose what I want to spend my money on and how I want to, invest this and how I enjoy my life. And then he started going crazy and, buying juice,
Well, and I had this shift in what was okay in my life.
Right.
And now you only squeeze fresh oranges.
You bet.
Yeah.
Only the best now. But I wasn't comfortable with the best back then.
Interesting.
And so it's an interesting thing. It's something that small triggered where I started reading personal development books, because all of a sudden I was like, wow, maybe those belief systems aren't necessarily the way it is. Maybe that was just my family's particular belief system. I started studying personal development. We both started studying together, and it evolved over the last 10 years of studying and challenges and seminars and different things that we've done to where actually Bree is a coach as well. I coach a lot of people, but I recently had one of my students that wanted some relationship coaching, and I was just like, call her, she's going to give you the advice. And so we're both in the industry as far as doing that.
Well, it's best to have, if one person in a relationship is working on personal development and learning things and expanding their self-image, and their partner's not on that same wavelength, it gets a little difficult to be able to stretch that, because then the partner's going to be like, no, you got to stay in this circle. And the other one's like, but I want to be here or here.
Right.
And so for us, it's been this incredible journey because we would go together and stretch each other. And so what's fun is
and there was times when one was ahead of the other. You know, I don't want to get the idea that it was always this perfect.
No, and that's
growing,
natural progression.
Yeah,
but that is what a relationship is, right?
Exactly.
But one pulls the other up, and then the other pulls the other.
And then sometimes it's smooth sailing where you're together and you're like, wow, this is great. And then something happens and you're like, whoa. Where did that turbulence come from? But what's been beautiful is that we can help each other out with things that he is so great at. You know, I may not be the best at, and things that I'm really well at. Tony's like, Bree, can you come over here and help me with this one? And so it's fabulous that way.
That's fabulous, yes. Well, you know, it's wonderful when we can see and we know what we're best at and what somebody else is best at. It's like thinking that one person is going to have the answer to all of our questions. They don't. And good for you that you've got that down. I'm very happy for you. I love your.
We're definitely growing together. You know, that's
I love your interaction today too. We had a fabulous intensive today where Tony was teaching, and he kept referring to Bree, and it was almost like you were on stage with him.
She's a good sport.
You know,
too.
you were so.
She's a good sport.
You know, there's just so many jokes between us, and he's just so fun that when it's, you know, all the jokes that he says and the things that he would infer, I just think they're so hilarious too. Because I love watching the reaction of the other people when they all look at me and be like, whoa, how's she going to take that one? I'm like, hey, that was great. Let's hear the next one.
The nice thing is I know if I cross the line, she's the one person in the room that will absolutely tell me so. She'll be like, whoa.
You didn't cross the line today, honey.
Tell me this. I'm curious your take of the transcending technique that you learned from Tom, because we learned it. Tom came to our home and we learned it together. How has that changed with the interaction with the kids? We have 4 kids, and at times it can be, you know, anyone that has kids. We have 4 that are close, and it can be crazy. So I'm curious how that has changed, because I know there's a lot of people that are dealing with the challenges of kids, which is unending attention that they need.
Forever.
How has that impacted on your side of being able to be present? Because I've noticed
that's
a big difference.
That's a great question. When I first heard of transcending, came from Tony, and I wasn't quite sure. Like, my dad taught me how to meditate, and when I was younger, just, you know, to breathe and listen to your breath and to slow down and to you know, be grounded. I was very blessed to have a dad who taught me to be grounded. Yes. And
I got grounded a lot too.
Wait, it doesn't sound like the same thing.
I think it was different though.
So when I was introduced, when Tony told me about Tom and the transcending thing, I was like, well, let me talk to my dad, because he, you know, he learned how to meditate and all that stuff. And so when my dad told me that he learned transcendental meditation when he was, in his late 20s, everything clicked for me. Because my dad is so patient and so, he just is very, I mean, like, his reactions are really quick, like when he's driving and all these things, and how he was able to, you know, one of the big things was how he was able to communicate with us kids and have a relationship with us and always be, like, I only remember my dad yelling at me 2 times.
Wow.
Blowing his lid twice.
Wow.
Oh, and I totally deserved it. When I was told that, I was like, wow, I want to be able to be that kind of parent for my kids, because now I finally was able to have the tools to be able to be patient and grounding, not grounded, for my children, because that's what I wanted them to have and have that kind of experience. So for me, I've been able to go into stressful situations with my children and be very calm and even-keeled. And my kids can see that.
Since you started practicing the transcending?
Since I've been practicing the transcending. And my kids totally sense that. And when they see me start to feel a little edgy, this is really fun. My kids are like, Mom, go meditate for 20 minutes and then come back, okay? Because they're like, hey, we don't want to deal with this. So that's been fabulous.
Yeah, it's been really
really
good.
great.
It's just
really
life-changing, really life-changing.
Well, all of you parents out there, we really encourage you to have the same wonderful experience and ground yourself, meditate. And Jason, could you come say goodbye with us? Because we would love to just tell everybody here.
Well, I just want to stick my head in. You know, the time just keeps running by. It's clear we're going to have you back to Maui.
Absolutely.
We would love it.
Aren't these guys great? I really appreciate having you guys and appreciate you taking the precious time while you're here on Maui.
Thank you.
And thank you for you give us there at Nouveau Riche University.
Absolutely.
And thank you for having a wonderful partner and happy to have you here with us. And we're going to do this again.
And you're both such beautiful people. We give you our mahalos, which you've probably learned by now.
I think we should start giving one of these because we're getting to
And
the
now
end
we're
of the time.
going to go, aloha, do it with me from the heart. Aloha.
We absolutely used every ounce of that tape.
Nice. Oh, I just like instantly calculated that I could just go like this, woo, and get in the water and wipe those bees off of me, right? But sometimes we need that motivation to get us to do something that used to be scary. But if the outcome is exciting enough for us, then we'll move towards it. And we'll talk a little bit about that. See, we each have in life, we talked about this last night, we each have a self-image. It's how we emotionally view ourselves. It's what you truly view as possible in your life. And you have in life, and I know that some of you aren't going to like this, and I'm not saying it maliciously, because I didn't like it when I heard it the first time. But you have in life exactly what fits your self-image. And see, the self-image can be stretched. It's like a rubber band. But if you don't give it constant attention, it'll snap back. So today there's going to be a stretching that takes place. There's going to be some new exciting ideas, some new possibilities. You're going to be asking yourself some certain questions. I know that because I was in a seminar 5 years ago where I sat and I asked some similar questions to what I believe you may be asking. We'll go over some of that. But it's going to stretch your self-image. The challenge is, today when you go home, out in the parking lot, there's a car that fits the old self-image, and a house that fits the old self-image, and friends, and like I said yesterday, a dog that fits the old self-image. Just get rid of the dog. I'm a real dog lover. Just kidding. I'm not. We have this dog. She's a sweet dog, too. That's the thing. She comes and licks my face, you know, and it stinks. Stop it. Stop. But she's so sweet, and she's been peeing on my floors for 9 years. You know what I mean? 9 years she's been peeing on my floors. Anyway, there's a dog that fits your self-image. There's all these other things that fit your self-image. Music and entertainment and clothes and all these things that fit the old self-image. And if you really want to create something new in your life and create this new outcome and this new possibility, you have to surround yourself with things that reinforce the self-image. Does that make sense? So we're going to get into some of that today. Talk a little bit about what
No matter where you go, no matter what you do, take that Maui style with you. Cause if you ain't Maui